So, return of the Nephilim. Right, so going way back to the beginning of the Old Testament, it doesn't say what most people think it says. On day 6, it says, God said, let us make man or mankind in our image after our likeness. So God created mankind, male and female, together. The thing is, the word for God there is El, or Elohim, which is the plural for El. And when you look up the meaning of the word El, well, my view on how you translate languages is a bit different to what Ross said, but you've got like 8 or so different meanings. But what you do, you don't choose the meaning you want, you take all the meanings together and see what it feels like to you. So, you've got God with a little g, God like one, mighty man, men of rank, mighty hero, angels, God with little g, false God, and this next one, God with a big G, the one true, I think they slipped that one in, because everything else gives you the impression of an angel worshipped as a god, when you take it all together. And the hint that it means angel is El. You get the names Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raguel, etc., etc., telling you that the creators at this point were angels. So when it says let us make man, it's the angels doing creating. And that was on day 6. I believe it was the Neanderthals that were created on day 6, the pre-humans. Okay, because on day 7, or after day 7, the day of rest, at some point after that, the Lord God, so the Lord of the angels, created Adam. Now, Adam's first job was to name all the animals. That couldn't have been a quick job. And after all the animals were named, it said that a helper wasn't found amongst the animals. So that's when Eve was created. So Adam and Eve weren't created together, and not on day 6. 2 creations, 2 different creators. Now the proof of it is that, and I won't go into much detail, but when Cain, basically he killed Abel, he was banished. And he said, if anyone finds me, they're going to kill me. Well, if it was only Adam and Eve there, who's going to kill him? So I'm saying that the Neanderthals were there, and they looked very different to Adam and Eve. So when Cain went out and he was banished, he took a wife. And I think he took a wife amongst the Neanderthals. The evidence of that is that human DNA was found amongst the Neanderthal DNA. So that's where Cain mixed with the Neanderthals. So that's, and I haven't gone into this, but the thing about eating an apple wasn't about eating an apple, it was about an angel having sex with Eve and created a second seed line. So kind of like that. So Eve had sex with the angel, then went to show Adam how to do it, and basically had 2 children, one from different fathers. Okay, set up 2 different seed lines, which came together later on. I'm going to talk about it later on. When Noah took a wife, he took a wife from the line of Cain. And there's a couple of books that came out just recently, 2019, when the Vatican actually admitted to all its archives underground. It released 2 books. One of them was called The Book of Lamech of Cain, and it confirmed that Nama, who married Noah, was of the line of Cain. So in Genesis 6, the most important thing in the whole book happened. It said there were giants in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God, the angels, came and had sex, or came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same were mighty men, men of old, men of renown. Okay, so giants came from the angels, and if you look in the book of Enoch, it tells you most definitely that's what happened. It was angels having sex with women, and so 200 angels, it turns out. Again, the book of Enoch is very, very detailed in that. 200 angels came down to Mount Hermon, okay, and one group of their offspring were called the Nephilim, who were giants. Okay, so the human genome was corrupted. Now, you've heard this story, you've seen this story play out many times. So whenever you've seen this, it's showing you 22 stars coming from the heavens down to the paramount, Mount Hermon. Okay? And in the book of Enoch, it tells you the names of the 22 chief angels. Okay? And angels and stars are synonymous. So also Mount Hermon, when Paris was the prime meridian, I think it's Greenwich now, Mount Hermon was exactly 33.33 degrees from east and 33.33 degrees from the equator. Okay, it's also 2012 miles from the equator and 2012 miles from Paris. So just for those who like the numbers. So the rise of the Nephilim, the Nephilim giants. So the Nephilim had very, very strange traits, well, according to the rest of the regular humans. First one, obviously, was giantism. Giantism is still around today. It's still around today, but when you look for giant people, what the mainstream will show you are kind of slightly misshapen people who are very weak. They have to have a walking stick and stuff like that. But no, there are anatomically correct, very powerful giant people still walking around on the earth today. Another one is 6 fingers and toes. This happens more often than you realise. I believe Oprah and Halle Berry have 6 toes. Yeah, it happens more often than you realise. Next one is excess body hair. Okay, there are people walking around. You wouldn't see them because they shave all the way up to the neckline and that. But they take their shirt off. It's like gorilla. And here's the big one: skin lacking in melanin. Sounds a bit inflammatory, but the thing is, without melanin, white skin is susceptible to the sun, and it's the only thing in this world where the sun doesn't energize; it harms. Next one is hair lacking in melanin. Not much to say about that, but just interestingly, one of the angels taught men makeup, and just wondered why they would teach makeup. I think it was for their daughters, who looked very, very alien. If you ignore that right eye, think how alien she would have looked to people, say, who look like me. Blue eyes, which is again eyes without melanin. Blue eyes were always considered the evil eye. If you ever go to Turkey, you might see that amulet all over the place, everywhere, hanging from cars, and from the shops, in their front windows, hanging around their necks. It's to ward off the evil eye. Because blue eyes were considered illegal at one point, would you believe? So there's a consequence for having no melanin in the eyes. It's called eye sunburn. Has anybody ever heard of eye sunburn? Well, they show this in in this news article, they show this eye with, a bit bloodshot perhaps, but that's not it. Brace yourself. This is eye sunburn. Right? So it's not a joke. Okay, I'm going to move on very quickly. one of the smoking guns of this is Rh negative blood. Rh negative blood is blood that doesn't have a certain protein coating on the red blood cells. Only 15% of humanity lacks this protein coating. All other animals on the face of the earth have it. Just 15% of humanity. Now, when a Rh negative woman conceives of an Rh positive man, her antibodies attack the baby as a foreign object. She has to have a ROGAM shot, it's called, to suppress her immune system so the baby has a fighting chance to live. That tells you that there is 15% of humanity that is incompatible with the rest of the race. That tells you that there's some hybridization going on. So, just to say, I'm not really it's not about race, it's not about skin colour, it's about bloodline, it's about nation. And this nation, just because you might look like them, doesn't mean you're part of them. If you watched Harry Potter, the elite family, the Malfoys, would call the other families mudbloods, dirty blood. If you're not part of their bloodline, they don't care about you. Just as what's his name? Carling says,
it's a big club, and you ain't in it.
That's it. You ain't in it. So the thing about the giants, the Nephilim, is that when they died, their spirits couldn't go anywhere. They were stuck on earth as disembodied spirits. They became known by lots and lots of different names. Nature spirits, but mostly demons, evil spirits. The Nephilim were given half the lifespan of a human. Now at that time, humans were living sort of 900 years or so, and the Nephilim were cursed to have a maximum of 500 years. I think the Nephilim still have half the lifespan of humanity, which is why they have to go to extraordinary lengths to stay here. Heard of adrenochrome? Anyone? Yeah? So the thing is about these demonic spirits, the one thing they want to be more than anything is incarnate again, which is, possession. Possession is real. I actually absolutely believe possession is real. So these Rh negatives, and I think there will be a few in here. I'll see which direction the chairs come from. Yeah. The Rh negatives, unfortunately, are more compatible with these demonic spirits. Right? They're more open, and these spirits can latch on easier. Which is why Rh negatives are more prone to multiple personality disorder, which is essentially possession. They're also more highly prized by these Satanists for satanic ritual abuse. They're also the ones who are more likely to be involved in alien abduction. Okay, and I think I've got a slide for that as well. They're sought out for things like MK Ultra as well. So the secret societies target Rh negatives. Also, the word white also actually means spirit, demon, thing. This is from the Anglo-Saxon dictionary. It says thing, demon, creature, spirit of the earth. I also found this. White Satan means the inhabitants of the Isle of Wight. I'm going to put David Icke in that category, but that's just me. Okay. So again, the alien abduction phenomena. There are no such thing as aliens. It's a flat Earth. Okay, no such thing as aliens. Aliens are actually demons, demon spirits. All these experiments, all these alien abduction experiments, center around reproduction. They do all these experiments about reproduction. Now, I'm linking it to, before the flood, there was, the book of Jasher tells you, they were mixing humans and animals, right? And I think it's all about trying to build bodies to be hosts for Nephilim spirits. This is an effort that's been always ongoing. And again, a bit of an aside here. Right now we have, I don't know if anyone's seen this, the D-Wave quantum computer. Has anybody heard of it? Yeah. Right, it's this quantum computer. It's just funny that if you just mess around with the name of it, you get demon. It's not like any computer that you've ever heard of. It's literally a big fridge that goes down to almost absolute zero inside there. And it all goes down. There's nothing in it except this little chip that looks a bit like an eye, doesn't it? The one eye. And now I'm going to play a little video of the guy behind this machine, Geordie Rose, talking about it. I want you to listen to how he describes it. Remember, he's talking about a computer.
This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other, and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world.
So it sounds like they're opening portals, yeah, being able to reach into another realm and grab their resources. One thing you've got to realise is that you do not reside inside your body. Your body receives you. Yeah, your particular frequency is being received by your body, which is why if you gave a heart and lung transplant to somebody else, that person will start to receive you and start to have your memories and your attributes, your likes and dislikes. Yeah, because those organs are still receiving you. I believe that machine is there to receive a consciousness. Not a good one either. And if it's connected to the internet, then it will be almost the power of the Most High, to be omnipresent, omnipotent. That's another thing. So, before the flood, right, the Most High looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. All flesh had corrupted on all its way upon the earth. So at this point, there were three different seed lines going on. There was human Nephilim hybrid, and human Neanderthal hybrid. Three different, essentially, species. And I found there's a little bit of evidence of that as well.
The genome sequencers, led by Svante Pabo, who works in Germany, has taken tiny little fragments of Neanderthal bones, isolated DNA, and determined the genome of the Neanderthal, and used that information to determine, using genetic methods, how long ago Neanderthals and humans were a single species, where the common ancestor was. They've also been able to compare human genomes and ask the question of whether there's any evidence of Neanderthal genes in the human genome. And they've found that there is. And the amount is quite significant, upwards of 5 to 7%.
It used to be 30% when they first came.
Neanderthals used to live in the Neander Valley. You could have called it the Cayuga Lake Basin, but that's where they lived. And out of Africa came the modern humans, and the word the geneticist uses, admixed. They admixed with the Neanderthals. And they all used to live in caves in those days like this. Came out of Africa, admixed with the Neanderthals. This was the Neanderthal territory. There was another group of Neanderthal-like creatures called the Denisovans. They lived up here in Siberia, and they have their genome has been sequenced. They were distinct from the Neanderthals. And so you can find in people of European and Asian ancestry evidence of about 7%, 5 to 10% of your genome is common with that of Neanderthals. We've been separated from them for 30,000 years or so. And in some of the tribes in Papua New Guinea and those islands out there, there's evidence for a different kind of genome, which is probably the Denisovan genome. And they might have 7% Neanderthal and 5% Denisovan. So they might be 12 or 15% different from us. And in fact, the Africans who came out from Africa have no evidence of any Neanderthal genes in them. No evidence of admixture. So they're the real pure humans. Homo sapiens. Really, really interesting, and it gives you a lot to think about.
So basically, he said there are three different bloodlines, three different seed lines going on in the earth. So that was why the flood had to happen. The whole earth got corrupted by this Nephilim DNA, and one of the traits of the Nephilim is psychopathy. Okay, wickedness. Okay, so the whole world was wicked, and it was only Noah, just Noah, who had the pure human DNA. When the flood happened, well, Noah had to find wives for his 3 sons. His 3 sons were corrupted because his wife was from the line of Cain. So he had to find wives for his 3 sons. He could only find wives amongst the corrupted. So the Nephilim DNA got the other side of the flood through the children of Noah. Just after the flood happened and they got back on dry land, there's a weird story about Ham seeing his father naked, and then Ham's son gets cursed. Well, I'm not going to go too far into it, but the story is corrupted. What happened was Ham had sex with his mother. Okay, that's what uncovering your father's nakedness means. Actually, you can find that in Leviticus. So Ham had sex with his mother, and Canaan was the result, which is why Canaan was cursed, because he had basically a concentration of a different DNA from the line of Cain and from the fallen angels. Okay, which is why all the giants post-flood were Canaanites, children of Canaan. So post-flood, what you'll see is the Most High is cleaning the bloodline, because all the three sons of Noah were corrupted, but Shem was the least corrupted. And so the Most High was guiding the bloodline of Shem. So there were sort of all these chosen ones. So Eber was a chosen one. Then skips a few generations, and then Abraham was a chosen one. Abraham was instructed to marry his half-sister, and only that child from this union with his half-sister was the chosen one, Isaac. Abraham had lots of children, but only Isaac was chosen. Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Now this is where it gets interesting, because this is where the bloodline got purified. All the fallen angel DNA ended up in Esau, the firstborn. None of that fallen angel DNA ended up with Jacob, because after Jacob, all his children were chosen ones. Okay, because the blood now has been sufficiently purified. So we look at the Edomites. The Edomites had the fallen angel DNA, but it came through a chosen line. So if you have no melanin, but you've got blonde hair, but you add a little bit of melanin to blonde hair, you get red hair. If you have the really pale skin from the having no melanin, put a little bit of melanin in there, you get sort of reddish skin, or you get those freckles. And same with eyes. If you've got blue eyes with no melanin, add a little bit of melanin, you get green eyes. So, I mean, with me, I've got the green eyes, and I've got slightly more body hair than I should have, so I've got some of the traits as well. So, in the story of the Edomites, the sons of Esau, they ended up marrying into a group of people called the Horites. And when you look them up, it says a cave dweller in the inhabitants of where the Edomites went to live. Cave dweller and troglodyte. Troglodyte is the word they used to use before they had the word Neanderthal. So Esau married into the Canaanites and the Horites. So he literally married himself into that bloodline, the fallen angel and the Neanderthal bloodline. So it says in Leviticus that the Most High cursed the Canaanites with leprosy. Now leprosy isn't that horrible, wasting disease. It's skin turning white. So that's what it meant in the Bible. So the Canaanites, they kind of look like that. They were cursed to be servants of servants. Now that was a curse after, this incident with Noah and his wife, and they were cursed with leprosy. One branch of these Canaanites became the Slavs. Remember, the curse was servant of servants. That's where we get the word slave from. These were the first slaves. The original Slavic language was called Canaanite. And I found some medieval maps that showed where the Slavs live. is where the Canaanites went to live. I can show it. Yes. Also, Genesis tells you that Japheth was given the land of Europe. Sons of Japheth were Gomer. Gomer, well, his name, where he went to live was called land of Gomer, which is, in Paleo Hebrew, is Gomernia. Germania. Yeah. So Germany. We've got Magog, which is also is Russia now. That doesn't follow, but lots of things happen there. But you also got Javan or Yavan or Yalwan, okay, which is Ionia, which is the first name for the Greeks. And another name is Togarmah, which is who became the first Turkish people. So the Canaanites and the Edomites mixed with the families of Japheth. So here's that map I was telling you about. It's a medieval map, and this place which is now sort of in the news at the moment, the Ukraine, and part of Russia, is known as Big Canaan. Here in the middle of Ashkenaz is Little Canaan. So you can find out who the Ashkenazi are. There's one sort of one place in the world where there's another concentration of Slavs outside of Europe. The place is called, in Paleo Hebrew, this is Canaan. Anybody want to guess where that is? So it's another place where there's a whole concentration of Slavic people, and the name in Paleo Hebrew is this is Canaan. Any ideas?
Egypt.
Canada, yes. Canada, this is Canaan. Okay? It's Paleo Hebrew. So the Canaanites, they actually went to become the Slavs, and they went further north. They became the Northmen, or Norsemen, or the tall whites, the Nordic people. So bear that in mind, because they're going to come up again later on. So in 1751, Benjamin Franklin wrote this essay. So it said, which leads me to add one remark, blah, 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 that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black and tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so, and in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians and Swedes are generally what we call a swarthy, black, dark complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons, and it should be Anglo-Saxons, Saxons only excepted, who with the English make up the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. Now this is, when it's saying white people, it's talking about this bloodline. Because as it happens, most of you all of you will be considered mudbloods. Because you're not part of their bloodlines, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You'd be in a palace somewhere, or heading up a corporation or something like that. So in 1751, he's saying that there was very, very few white people in the world. So has anybody come across this video? Yeah. Amazing video, yeah? So I'm changing gears, but we're going to come back on track in a minute. So I'm going to talk about the implications of this video. So he highlights in this video the map problem. The fact that on our maps we have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And the reason they're the Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer is because when the age is Aries, so you put the what they call it, astrology wheel with Aries at the top, that's when the sun is on the equator at I think the equinox, one of the equinoxes. You draw a line down, that's when Libra is where the sun will be at the other equinox. And if you draw a line across, that's where the sun will be at the solstices, so Capricorn and Cancer. But the problem is, we haven't been in Aries for apparently over 2,000 years. We've actually been in the age of Pisces, which we're going into Aquarius, or we are in Aquarius now. But Pisces, in the age of Pisces, those two tropics should be Sagittarius and Gemini. So our maps are over 2,000 years out of date. So we can't tell what our world looks like. The maps are so old, okay? So we see this as the flat Earth map. But this guy, Iwaranon, who made that video, showed that there was a proper map, a real map of the Earth. And that's on the moon. The thing about this map of the moon is that our Earth is only one small part of a greater Earth. Okay, so, just I went too fast there, but yeah, just one small part of the greater Earth. Yeah, so this is our Earth, and there's more Earth somewhere else that we can't get to. So imagine the Earth as a lake, just a circular lake with land poking out of that lake. Now imagine that lake's frozen over, solid, okay? And over 1/4 of that lake, there's a heat source circling round. And that heat source is melting a puddle in that lake. And all those islands that are poking out, that's our Earth. The rest of the greater Earth is under the ice. It's frozen solid. And there's like a magnetic centre. That magnetic centre is where the sun is moving round. But that magnetic centre is moving very slowly around the greater Earth. And as it moves round, it takes the sun with it, and the sun starts melting out a different part of the puddle, a different part of the pond. So new lands appear. I think this is what he says in this.
Every 2,160 years, our north magnetic pole circles the inner solid core and vortex by 30 degrees. This is why the pole has moved from Canada and is en route to Siberia. It is traversing the outer central circle, or what is more appropriately termed the magnetic circle. We live inside of a perfect clock.
Now it's interesting you said we live inside a perfect clock. When I went on the European Flat Earth Tour, I ended up in Prague. And we met a, how would we call him? Pragic guy? Somebody from Prague. Pragian? I don't know. So we met this guy, and he told us about the astronomical clock in the centre of Prague. Okay, he said it got destroyed in the war, but when they rebuilt it, they changed the map that was in the centre of this clock. They put a meaningless globe map. The map before was different. But this clock is showing you how the greater Earth works. Because if you can see, that's the centre of the whole clock. But it's also what this circular bit is sitting on. So you can see it's going to spin round, and that open area is going to be, it's like the puddle that's the sun and moon, or the sun melts out. So that circle is going to move around the whole greater Earth. And the sun and moon are on the centre of that line. So sun and moon are always going to circle round that bit. Do you see it? Yeah? So this is what I think is really happening. Okay? I think the original clock had the real map, because this is old world technology, this is old world architecture. So we see buildings that we can't build today. We also see buildings that are sort of submerged underground with glass windows, under the ground. I think as the sun starts to melt the ice, well, that water's got to go somewhere. And I think it either causes liquefaction, starts to making the ground unstable and the buildings start to sink, or it stirs up lots of silt, and as the water drains away, the silt settles at a different level. But I think, as new lands open up, cities are already built there from previous civilizations. Because we see old buildings that, again, we can't build today. Crystal Palace, built at a time when we just barely could make enough glass to build do a home, let alone this massive monstrosity made purely of glass. There are all sorts of buildings, again, we can't build today. Some of these are from world fairs, and I'm going to concentrate on the Chicago World's Fair in 1838, I think it was. And they tried to make us believe that they built this city out of plasterboard and chicken wire. Yeah? It's massive architecture that we can't replicate today. In fact, they say that, but there's several buildings from this World's Fair that they literally picked up, floated to another city, and they're still using them today. So it can't be chicken wire and plasterboard. So also it seems that these cities came with technology, because they could light this city up again like a Christmas tree at a time when they were struggling to light New York up. In fact, at this time, say London was still being lit by gaslight. But this is all electric light, lighting up the entire city. Also, there's this weird building in Chicago World Fair called the Baby Incubator Building. This is the Baby Incubator Building. In it were hundreds and hundreds of live babies in incubators. This was a sideshow, that people can come and just look at these babies. Very strange. Again, what for? Yeah, what for? Now, this was, just to tell you how widespread this was. This is Jerry Seinfeld. Well, this
mine
isn't,
about
but
the same early
this guy.
1900s. My dad was an incubator baby in Coney Island. He was on display. They had just invented the incubator. He was.
You could literally tell me anything, I'd believe.
No, it's true.
Yes, I was a bit
Totally
quiet, but
susceptible.
Yeah.
it's Jerry Seinfeld. His father was an incubator baby. There was lots and lots of these incubator babies. Now I found a weird picture amongst these pictures of incubators. Yeah, was this one. Amazing growth, it said above. Baby incubator, 12 months growth in 1 hour. That's odd, isn't it? I wonder if that's true. Again, remember, they had technology from these cities. About the same time, though, you got this phenomenon. Orphan trains. Somehow, in New York, there were 300,000 orphans. Where did these orphans come from? What happened to the parents? 300,000 orphans. And what they were doing was putting them on trains and transporting them all across America to populate the cities that are around, Not only that, but in Victorian London, there were loads and loads of orphanages and lots of child labour. These children, you can find loads of pictures of children operating heavy machinery. Where are the parents? Now, it was said that women were having children out of wedlock, and the stigma was so bad that they give up their children, leave them on the steps of orphanages. But if it was such a stigma, they wouldn't do that twice, would they? So where did all these children come from? And again, it wasn't just London and America, it was all over the world. There were orphans being transported, from England to Australia and Canada. In Europe, there were orphans going everywhere. But there were no black orphans. Let's move on, go a little further in history to Hitler's master race. Now, I'm not sure if people are aware that there was a program called Lebensborn. Lebensborn was about basically breeding out the human to create the pure Nephilim. They were getting the blondest, blue-eyed people and putting them together in breeding camps to actually try and get the, just try and breed out human and get the Übermensch, the Superman, the Nephilim. Okay. Now, this picture isn't photoshopped. The tallest ones were automatically entered into the SS, right? And they were called the Mensch. They were the master. They were top of the top of the Lebensborn program, but they had to be at least 6'6" or something. Again, they were trying to breed out the human and get the Nephilim giant back. Now, after the war, you've heard of Operation Paperclip, where all the German, weapons and military intelligence people were, scooted off to America. But there was also Operation Soviet, that one, okay, which was the Soviet version, where something like 7,000, Nazi specialists were taken to Russia in one night. Paperclip was between 1945 and 1959. Okay, they were selecting the right ones, yeah? They did this in one night, so they knew who they were going for. If America got all the rocketry and the military intelligence people, I think Russia got the eugenics people. Okay, they were the two sort of things that the Nazis were working on: eugenics and warfare. So, what this bloodline has been doing they've been infiltrating all the top positions of power. Now, this is just recent. This video I'm going to show you is just recent, but they've been doing this for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
But there are two countries in the world now in which the young global leaders have emerged. Tell us just a bit about that in terms of the governance.
Yes, actually, this notion to integrate young leaders is part of the World Economic Forum since many years. And I have to say, when I mention our names like Mrs. Merkel,
Angela Merkel,
Vladimir Putin, and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets.
Penetrate the cabinets.
Yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the president, with a young global leader. But what is important for me is those young global leaders have an opportunity to come here.
Right.
And we have established a course now since several years. And I think this cooperation has a tremendous impact, because being here for a week really creates a strong community. And we, in addition to the young global leaders, we have now the global shapers in 450 cities around the world.
So, you can see, you can see this narrative going on right now, right? Putin is one of the young global leaders. All of them are. And now he's talking about global shapers in 450 countries around the world. That's how they could do this lockstep thing, where everybody moved all at once. There is nothing in this world that is natural. It's all scripted. And that, I just said, this is a recent one. They've been doing this for hundreds, if not thousands of years, moving into positions of power and then scripting reality for us. So we know what this bloodline are trying to do. Global depopulation. But that's a bit odd, really, because if you really look, you find that overpopulation isn't the problem.
Mr. President, demographers tell us that in order to sustain itself, a population needs a birth rate of 2.1 live births per woman. In the whole of Europe, the only country that is reproducing at sustainability level is Albania, or Turkey if you count Turkey as a European country. Nowhere else. Europe, including European Russia, is scheduled, according to one UN report, to lose 100 million people over the next 40 years. Germany alone is going to see a shrinkage of its population of 20 million. These are not projections about what might happen if we don't do something. If you like, there's nothing we can do about it now. The decline in birth rates has already happened. The only question is how we deal about it. Why did it come to this stage? What brought us to this pass? Well, one doesn't want to oversimplify. There's obviously a lot of things going on to do with changing working patterns, to do with the spread of contraception, to do with the different role of women in society, to do with longevity. But I wonder whether one part of the problem is the way in which the state has expanded and squeezed out the private sphere, has annexed to itself jobs and duties that were traditionally discharged within the family: childcare, education, social security. The first generation raised with cradle-to-grave welfare, in other words, to be excused the traditional responsibilities of adulthood, was also the first to give up on parenthood. And we now face a choice between demographic collapse or importing 100 million people to sustain our numbers and pay our pensions. This should be the top issue in Europe, and it's not one that we're going to address by arguing about changes in employment regulation.
So basically, the population of Europe has collapsed, absolutely collapsed. And it's not just Europe, it's pretty much everywhere in the world. You can just do a search. I mean, I did a search on YouTube, put population crisis in, and just start putting countries, and every country came up, population crisis. So just to say, give you an idea, because I said that all these countries are extinct. Okay, they're already extinct. It's because people don't understand what exponential decline means. Right, so let's have a look at what exponential decline is. So if you've got a jar of jelly beans, and there's 1,023 jelly beans in that jar, and the first day you go to it, take one jelly bean out. Second day, double it, take two. Third day, 4, 6, 8. Carry on, right? How many days do you think when that jar's going to be empty? 10. Well, 10. Yeah. Dopey Dave. Okay, so, right, smart ass, whoever said that. What day do you think, if it's 10 days to be empty, what day do you think it will be half full? Oh, some of you already know, yeah. So it's actually day 9, yeah? The point is you don't see it coming. Right now, we are just at that, so the curve goes very slowly. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere to begin with. It's like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, so on. Yeah, but then all of a sudden, it collapses, it falls. We are just about there now. Yeah. In fact, the only country that isn't, or the only continent that isn't collapsing, is Africa. Pretty much. Even this is out of date. Even France is now in blue now, and it's well below replacement rate. Okay, this is why this bloodline is concentrating its efforts in Africa. It's not just concentrating its efforts here because you're all mudbloods. Yeah, they don't care about you. So, doing a little research, I asked if there are any orphanages left in this country. Turns out there aren't any. 0. None. There are no orphanages in America, or Canada, or Australia. Gone, all of them. But we're seeing this story, this narrative coming out now. Yeah, thousands of children in Ukraine's orphanages. So I did a little research to find out if there are, how many orphanages there were in Ukraine. So I found there's over 750 orphanages in Ukraine. Now this list was from 2001, and I found other orphanages, but I couldn't find anywhere else that had a complete list like this. So it has at least 750 orphanages. Because somebody said about child trafficking. Yeah, I don't think it's that trafficking is going on. Yeah, Ukraine is also the world centre for surrogate births. So people go to Ukraine and get supposedly get a mother to carry their baby for them. Right. So under the cover of this war, there's a sub-narrative going on, and that is Ukrainian orphans needing a home in the West. Are you hearing that? Well, in this country, we're seeing lots of stories like this. Ukraine orphans flown by a football charity to their new lives in the UK. But it's not just the UK. So I've got a little montage of some of the stories around the world.
So what we're seeing, as you just said, is an unprecedented mass exodus out of Ukraine, and it is really unparalleled, at least in its swiftness. So 1.5 million people, including 500,000 children, have left. And Europe's response so far has been remarkably generous and united. So we're seeing, for instance, in neighboring countries like Poland and Romania and Slovakia, that they are admitting every single Ukrainian that reaches their territory.
Every single
one. The EU itself,
one.
for instance, is now supporting those frontline states with a new directive that says that Ukrainians that reach the EU will be allowed to stay for up to 3 years. They'll have access to services, to work, and their children will be able to go to school. And this is exactly as it should be. It's exactly the vision that international refugee law suggests should be the approach. But at the same time, it is also reinforcing a kind of jarring double standard. And so if we think, for instance, back to the last time that Europe had a major refugee crisis, which was in 2015, when more than 1 million Syrians, mostly Syrians, reached Europe, the response was quite the opposite. It was much more of a closed-door response. Now, there were, of course, very important exceptions, like Germany and Sweden, that had much more of an open-door policy. But the bulk of Europe really responded in a way that we're not seeing with the Ukrainian crisis. And at the same time, that same dynamic is still happening today. So a lot of the people that are fleeing Ukraine are migrants from places like Africa and Yemen, and they're being treated very differently. They're having trouble getting out. They're being forced off of trains. The EU has said that the policy is that anybody fleeing Ukraine will be admitted. But we're seeing a very different dynamic play out, as we are with other refugee groups within Europe.
The black people aren't allowed to go.
With 3.5 million people fleeing Ukraine since the war began, Canada has made promises to host an unlimited number of displaced Ukrainians for at least 3 years. 1 month into the conflict, it's unclear, though, just how many have arrived. Hilary Johnstone is on that part of the story, and she joins us from Ottawa. Hilary, thanks so much for joining us. What do we know about Canada's efforts to help Ukrainians resettle here?
Good morning, John. Well, this morning what we're hearing from officials is that since January 1st, so of course that is before the war began, more than 10,000 Ukrainians have come to Canada. We're still waiting for an updated figure of exactly how many have come since that conflict began. But as you were mentioning, Canada has offered to host an unlimited number of Ukrainians as temporary residents for a period of up to 3 years. So they can apply for a free visitor visa. Once they come here, they can apply for work permits, study permits. Kids can enroll in elementary and high schools. This effort to try and make sure that Ukrainians have some sort of stability here in Canada for a temporary period until it is safe for them to return to their country. And of course, we know that the need for this is huge. This morning, the latest number from the United Nations is that 3.6 million Ukrainians have fled their country since the fighting began a month ago today. So back on February the 24th. For the most part, they have gone to Poland. More than 2 million have gone to Poland. After that, Romania, more than 500,000, and after that, Moldova and Hungary. So just a huge need, John, of all of these Ukrainians who've had to flee their country looking for a safe place to go.
More than 20,000 Ukrainians have arrived in Ireland. The majority are staying in hotels and B&Bs.
Okay, so as you can hear, more than 20,000 have already come into Ireland. But as they have stated as of yesterday, an unlimited amount are to be coming in, which will be more than 200,000.
But focus is now turning to the longer-term accommodation situation. Today, the Minister for Housing convened a meeting of industry stakeholders.
We need to look at other measures which I've been doing already about, how we will accommodate, an unprecedented number of people who've come into our country over the medium and long term, whilst continuing to ensure that housing for all is protected.
Okay, this is a country, Ireland, with a housing crisis that has been ongoing for a long, long time. Over 10,000 homeless people on the streets in Ireland. Property prices artificially inflated and rents that are sky high, with younger people finding it impossible to leave home. He said Housing for All, which was an initiative set up late last year to build houses. Makes me wonder who this was set up for, the people of Ireland, or did they foresee this huge influx of immigrants? Housing crisis for decades, but within months of setting this scheme up, we have this situation occur.
Many of the measures discussed today are already contained in the government's Housing for All strategy, leading to questions from some as to why this additional capacity hasn't already been utilised.
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it? You have all of these government lackeys all of a sudden running around like blue-ass flies, spending money, building properties. It's of the utmost importance. It's imperative we spend money and fix this problem now. And the question is, why did you not do it before for the people of Ireland, who have had a housing crisis for years and years? For the homeless, why not do it before? Will we get an answer?
Of course that raises the question of why didn't you do it before, but I don't think now is the time to be churlish about that. What it is to get behind what's being said and to make sure that what's being promised here is genuinely delivered.
Oh, okay. In other words, not going to answer that question. And if you do, this clown reckons you are being churlish for asking that question. In other words, he considers it a rude question. And it's not the time to ask that question because, well, the answer, what is the answer? Well, they have no answer. The answer is they could have done it before, but they couldn't be bothered to spend the money. Obviously not too bothered for the people of Ireland, but for the refugees of Ukraine, they will move heaven and earth.
So you're seeing that these refugees are given a kind of artificially high importance over local people, and it's only certain Ukrainian refugees that are being allowed out, not the black ones. So that leads me to some questions. Could this be like a repopulation effort? You know, they're killing all of us, or trying to kill all of us, right? Perhaps they're trying to repopulate with them, their bloodline, which they've created, literally, because remember the Nazi scientists, you know, they obviously didn't stop when the war ended, working away, you know, behind the Iron Curtain. And remember, everything that we see out in the mainstream is scripted. What if they were working on recreating their bloodline, and now they're seeding their bloodline throughout the world? But remember the effort of, you know, before the flood, and you know, the lebensborn program and all that, and the alien abductions was about reproduction, was about trying to create host bodies for the Nephilim. What if, you know, this is about creating these Nephilim bodies ready for when a portal can be opened and these Nephilim can come back en masse and have a body waiting for them? Yeah? It's speculation, but I'm just putting jigsaw puzzle pieces together. You know, it's chilling, but that's what I think's going on. I really think that's what's happening, because none of this narrative makes sense. You know, we're seeing that it's Ukraine that's firing bombs at itself. It's to make us believe that's what's going on. So under cover of this fake war, they can move all these people all over the place. The Georgia Guidestone says, right, they want 500 million left. That 500 million is not going to be us. So what if they're putting their 500 million out in the world right now? So that's basically what I think was going on. One question that I'm asked often about this idea is if the fallen angels are still around, because the fallen angels were imprisoned for 70 generations, according to the book. Now, depending on what numbers you use, that could mean that they were released just about the time of the Industrial Revolution. Now, bearing in mind that the fallen angels taught man technology. Isn't it odd that we went from, as humans, we went from, for thousands of years with no change, then all of a sudden, in the space of a couple of hundred years, this technology just exploded. I think we got help. I think we were given help. So if they're free now, who would they be today? Well, one thing about them, we can sort of, extrapolate what we know about these fallen angels. They crave worship. They needed to be worshipped as gods. Yeah. So in the world right now, they would be known by everybody, and there would be people worshipping them. Right? They would be immortal, so they would have to have some kind of strategy to hide that immortality. I don't know if you watched the film Highlander. Anyone see that film? You must have. There can only be only one. But the thing is, Connor McLeod, he had a strategy for hiding the fact that he was immortal. He would, live a life, pretend to die, then come back as his son or something else, and then take up his fortune or whatever and carry on. Can you imagine there's a group of people who are doing the same thing? Anyone have a guess?
The Queen.
Could be, but I think there's somebody even more specific. The stars, the superstars, the idols, screen idols. Yeah, there's hundreds of these. These people that we all know, yeah, we've all seen. There's an old version of them, Now here's the smoking gun for me, yeah. Peter Dinklage, the guy from Game of Thrones, I think, yeah. His double is also a dwarf. It's more than just, he looks a bit like him. I think these stars, these idols, are doing the same thing as Highlander. Okay? So, I think I've talked enough. Thanks a lot.